room this Monday morning, the 10th of August. And I say 10th of August with emphasis this morning because then tomorrow's the 11th of August. And you'll be, well, he's here, so he'll tell us about what the next words after you will be voting next year on a Tuesday, kind of like this one, in a general election. But our conversation this morning revolves around a ruling that came out of the courts on Friday that had been chased for a while. And one of the petitioners, Willis Otieno, an advocate of the High Court, as well as the deputy party leader of the Safina Party, joins us this morning. Bwana, good morning.
Good morning. How are you doing?
Very well, thank you. How are you?
I'm okay.
Karibu sana.
Asante sana.
We're going to get into it. I don't know that an hour is enough, but let's try.
Yeah.
Before we go there, Dennis has today's proverb.
Yes. We are in Mauritania. And the country has one thing called the Richards structure, which is a giant circular geological dome visible from space. They're rich in iron ore, gold, and copper, which is then being used to propel the country's economy. The proverb that we get this morning says, "He who has no spoon will burn his hands." He who has no spoon will burn his hands. How would you interpret it?
If you don't have any spoon, any tool, you'll have to use your own hands, your bare hands. And you'll have to face the consequences of that hand exposure. So if you don't have any support structures, then you're exposed. Yes.
Well said. Well interpreted.
Indeed. So, Wakili, on Friday, even before, it was out there, you sent me this message with this ruling before Lady Justice Tande. And I read it actually twice, just going through it. And the long and short of it here is that the term essentially began in 2020, or a new term would have begun in 2021. And so that meant that an election should be held this year. I mean, I'm oversimplifying this really, but that's essentially the long and short of it.
The term of office of the president, members of parliament, senators, governors, MCAs, women reps, the election has to be held tomorrow, Tuesday. That's the second Tuesday of August inside the 5th year.
Okay.
The main challenge that many Kenyans face is they convolute the term that you're supposed to serve and the election cycle. We have an election cycle, which is independent of term in office. Your term in office is determined by the swearing in of the next person. That swearing in is a consequence of an election. So our primary focus should be on the election cycle.
Okay.
But then, Kenyans need to disabuse themselves of this legacy politician sold narrative that they are elected to serve for 5 years. Nowhere in our constitution is it indicated that the president, member of parliament, senator has a 5-year term. That was in the old constitution, section 9, which was done away with. The only person who was given a 5-year term in the constitution, article 177(4, was the member of county assembly, MCA, which MCA went to court in 2017. And the court said, we agree. The constitution grants you a 5-year term. But the same constitution provides that your election must be conducted with the other elections in a general election. So whereas you have an express 5-year term, because of the requirement of the provisions for your elections to be conducted with the others, you will not be in a position to serve for the entire 5 years by dint of this provision. I'm now seeing some cynics trying to say that we should read Article 177(4) and impute it to the president and the other elected officers. No. The reading has been read on the 177 to apply it to what date of general elections.
Okay.
Then the third point that legacy politicians want us to be confused with is they want you to discuss this conversation with individuals in mind.
Okay.
That is what convolutes it. That when you read it and you say, put William Ruto on your, at the top of your mind, you put your local member of parliament or governor at the top of your mind, then you start saying, oh, my Ruto or my MP, my senator should have an extra 1 year. Remove William Ruto from this conversation.
Okay.
At starting point. Just discuss the law. Fidelity, faithfulness to the Constitution.
Yes.
Without putting individuals. With that in mind, everybody, because this is basic English, will come to the conclusion that elections are held inside the 5th year. Not every 5 years, not after 5 years.
Okay.
Simple.
So if we were to do numbers, because some of us, we need a picture to then be able to draw. So we are in 2026
Yes.
now. In the last election cycle of the country, when was that?
So if you want to understand numbers, I invite us to look at Article 259, 5C of the Constitution, which defines for you how to calculate years for purposes of our Constitution.
Okay.
And you count from the date when the event occurred. So the event occurred on the 9th of August, 2022.
Yes.
This event being the general election.
yes.
All right.
The event occurred on the 9th of August, 2022. Article 259 tells you, 259 5C, it tells you that 1 year runs from the date of that event, 9th of August, 2022, and it lapses on the eve of the corresponding year.
That's August 8th,
That will be August 8th,
2023.
2023. That is year 1.
Yes.
Then year 2 will run from 9th of August, 2023 to 8th August, 2024. Year 3 will run from 9th August, 2024 to 8th August, 2025. Year 4 will run from 9th of August, 2025 to 8th August, 2026. Year 5 runs from 9th of August, 2026 and ends on the 8th of August, 2027. That we agreed.
Yes.
So we identify our 5th year.
Yes.
Operative word, it runs from 9th of August, 2026 to 8th of August, 2027.
Yes.
Then now, inside this 5th year, you are told in the 5th year,
Yeah.
look for the second Tuesday in the month of August. And you conduct your elections. Inside the not
So
after.
inside the 5th
Fifth
year,
year,
yes.
look for your second Tuesday in the month of August.
Yes.
And if we were following the Constitution,
Yes.
then that would be tomorrow.
That's tomorrow. So tomorrow is elections day in Kenya, but the court recognized that IEBC may have not had in place logistical mechanisms necessary to facilitate the exercise of that election. So on its own motion, it decided, and it used the terms, that to save the stability of the nation and to avoid the country plunging into chaos, it said this declaration will take effect from 2031. But my argument is this. Look at Article 253 of the Constitution. Sorry, Article 23 of the Constitution. The orders which a court can give upon making a finding in a constitutional petition are spelled out. Whereas I understand, and to an extent, I'm agreeable to the court's proposal to give IBC time. That time cannot be 1 year, or should not be 1 year. What the court should do in this particular instance, having made a declaration of unconstitutionality, what it should do is to ask IBC that you must now comply with the Constitution within the shortest time possible. And that is a recognized principle in law, that if something is to be done on a particular date and it is impossible to be done due to other extraneous circumstances, then at the first available opportunity when it can be done, it should be done. So IBC should be telling us we can do it in 60 days, in 120 days, or in 6 months.
Okay, when you look at the election cycle, which is, one would say, is the pitch where IEBC plays, they ought to understand what the law says. We equally have the government advisor, the Attorney General, who advises government on anything that runs around the country. What does this say about IEBC in understanding the laws that govern its operations and ensuring that the elections that we have are free, fair, and credible?
IBC, I'll call it incompetence galore. if you look at what IBC filed in court, the thrust of their argument in court was that the president and the others are elected to serve for 5 years. And my answer was very simple. Show us which provision of the Constitution says that the president, member of parliament, governor is elected to serve for 5 years. And I will not even waste a single second of the court's time. I'll withdraw the petition. Just show me this article that grants the president a 5-year term. Doesn't exist. So IBC is reading the old Constitution, Section 5. But is it by design or it's by default?
Yeah.
I do believe it's by design. Because IBC, in my view, is holding brief for the legacy politicians who have successfully sold to the people of Kenya that they are elected to serve for 5-year term. But your term in office, or if you're granted a term in office for 5 years, you should be able to point out exactly which article of the Constitution
Provides.
gives you that
Yeah.
5-year term. Doesn't exist. Your term in office is purely to be found within the election cycle that we have defined to be a 4-year election cycle. Then inside the 5th year,
Yeah.
we conduct elections.
As you pack up, so
Yeah.
essentially, okay.
So tomorrow is an election day, according to the law.
Yes.
Now, where the court has made its findings that these is to be suspended until next year due to logistical issues, but constitutionally then, every other elective post, every other individual who's in office today will be illegally in office, because then that is unconstitutional, because the Constitution at that point does not protect them. So that means the president doesn't exist.
What-
Members of parliament can't pass bills.
What happens is this. Article 134 of our Constitution is very clear.
Yeah.
I don't know. Kenyans don't like when lawyers say the law is very clear. That's when Ruto becomes a temporary president, a
Caretaker.
temporary incumbent from tomorrow midnight. That is what he becomes, whichever way you look at it, because the election's date remains solidly the 11th of
11th.
August 2026. That's the election date.
Yeah.
And what we are going through now from tomorrow is a temporary incumbency. And we need to read Article 134 of the Constitution on what a temporary incumbent can do and cannot do. Because on the 11th of August 2026, William Ruto and the members of parliament and the governors, they lose the sovereign mandates that they were given. That sovereign mandate was running from the 9th of August when they celebrated it, and that sovereign mandate ends on the 8th. It ends now on the 10th
Yeah.
of August, midnight,
That's
by virtue of reading
By
the law.
virtue of the
So
brief.
having ended on the 10th of August, midnight, he moves into a new phase of being a temporary incumbent.
So what are we saying? What do we call this period? Do we call it interim? Do we call it, because I'm not even talking about
Yeah.
the individuals, because it's the president, as you said, it's governors, it's Senate, it's members of parliament, it's women representatives. What do we call, not even talking about what we call them, what do we call this period then? Because we're not talking about what Willis said, we're talking about the judgment of the court, whereby they said that this in fact is the case. But to avoid or to avert what would be chaos in the ecosystem, we will hold it for 1 year. But it doesn't take away the merit of the judgment.
Exactly.
So what does this period then become?
This period, in my view, is what we call a temporary incumbent. Those now become transitional government that exists by accommodation of the courts, not by the sovereign mandate of the
The
people.
people.
In my local language, they'll call it Rais Kojolo. Dennis will understand. In Kiswahili, it will be something close to Rais wa kushikilia.
Okay.
Because we are going through a transition.
Acting. Yeah.
So you are just holding on,
The holding brief.
for the people of Kenya to facilitate the transition into a newly donated sovereign will of the people.
People may ignore this, Wakili, as, you know, watu wanapiga kelele, kotini wanaongea vile wanataka. But we don't, it's actually quite a serious thing, because we're talking about what the Constitution says and what the law says, that it's a little bit more serious than we might give credit here at this point, where somebody says, because we're met with chagrin and we say, are you kidding? How can we possibly have an election in 24 hours? before you even start to look at the brick and mortar of it, the thought or the acknowledgement, consideration of how serious this is doesn't pass the minds of very many people, the IEBC being included. The elected members of parliament, the elected governors, elected senators don't take this into consideration because it's like, okay, that's nice. The court in Malindi said something. That's great. So what?
The challenge that we face in our country is that people don't take seriously the provisions of Article 3.
Yeah.
And Kenyans have to make a decision if you want to be a country of the rule of law or a country of legacy politicians. Because in my reading of the Constitution, we need to amend our minds. The only amendment we need in this country at this point is an amendment of the mind, not amendment of the Constitution. Amend your mind to remove it from your hiccups of the old, to start reading and applying this Constitution as it provides. And in amending your mind, the first amendment you're going to do is you must delete, Control-Alt-Delete, Section 9 of the former Constitution, which had specifically provided for a 5-year term for President and members of Parliament. Control-Alt-Delete, that provision was, the Committee of Experts and the Kenyan people were aware of it. Because it was in the Constitution, the old one, when they were drafting. They decided to put it on the side, discard it. We don't need it anymore. And they said, we are going to tie your term in office to the election cycle and proceeds to define for you the election cycle.
Okay.
So,
I'm sorry, Wakil, please. These elected members of parliament, when they're taking office, they swear to abide by the Constitution, isn't it? So that would require an understanding of and, an acknowledgement of what the Constitution says. It seems to me a pretty serious indictment on anybody who is in that position who does not understand that even the term that you're serving, what you think is going to be 5 years, was in an old Constitution and that you're not living that today. It seems as though it's much more than that you shouldn't be in office. It's a deeper understanding that who essentially is in these positions in which they are elected, and do they have a full understanding of what it means to be in elected office?
That's true. In fact, I was talking to a serving senator, soon to be former senator of a county. And it was sad that what he said was, when I was elected, I knew I was going to serve for 5 years. And that we should adopt a purposive interpretation of the Constitution. And I asked him, what do you mean by purposive interpretation? So you want us to read the Constitution to satisfy your own personal interest? The Constitution is a document of all Kenyans, not of an individual. So if that was your thought, too bad for you. You should have looked for Willis Otieno, Reverend lawyer, to tell you from the beginning that as you are seeking this elective office, know that you are going to serve until the 11th of August, 2022. Beyond that, 2026. Beyond that, there will be an election. So people want to reread the Constitution in a way that satisfies their personal interest. This thing has got nothing to do with individuals and personalities. This thing has got everything to do with the law. And Kenyans must accept, only that they forget. When we are doing our Constitution Amendment review, the Committee of Experts, even the Guy Commission, there was one thing which was very key, and it was a very big debate. I mean, I've always followed elections, chapters, and legal developments in this country. And even that time, I was still deeply involved in this. Kenyans were aware that elections were held in December of the election year. Persons were being elected to serve for 5-year terms. They were aware of all of that. Then Kenyans decided in their views to the Committee of Experts, they said, these December elections interfere with our festivities and travel plans. We want elections to be held on a month other than December.
Yes.
And the first argument was, which are the other available months? So there was April of the election year, and there was August. And the first argument, there was April, August, and November. On April, it was said that will shorten the term in office, because then it means election preparations will have to start earlier, and the campaigns. And number two, April is a long rainy season. So questions of the rains interfering in the elections will be an issue. The second was the question of November, which some in the team had proposed. And the argument was, your elections are held largely in public schools. And they provide the infrastructure for polling stations. And November, we have exams. So we cannot do it in November for that year. So the compromise became August. And it was a keenly followed conversation that we were now bringing it inwards. Because first point to be rejected was if you take it out towards the elections year, the August of the preceding year, you will be adding an extra period in office to those who will be holding those offices.
Okay.
So the compromise was that because they're individuals, they can't be given an extra mandate. You can only bring in the election, so their mandate is shortened.
Yeah.
And that is what the Kenyan people passed. So now this is amnesia that I'm seeing many of us are suffering from. I wonder what informs it when we had a very robust thing in the elections inwards. But legacy politicians are conmen. These are people who specialize at conning Kenyans. And look, even today, one of the leading dailies is talking of 1 year to go. It's part of subconscious control of the mind, that you must attune your mind to the year 2027 as the election year. This headline should have read, in my view, temporary incumbency. How far can we go? So that we start exorcising the ghosts of legacy politicians out of our constitution-making process and living within the constitution. We all know that you are there, yes, but you are just a temporary transitional administration or a holder of a public office. And the primary focus of the people is to be that how soon can we organize elections so that people can faithfully donate their sovereignty. Because it's the sovereign will that is being discussed here, not politicians' accommodation.
Because where we find ourselves today is very interesting, because with Kenya being described as a highly litigant society, anyone can go to court today and say the National Assembly Senate ought to be dissolved because, as per the elections, they ought not to be in office. Look at the powers of the president, the way they've been limited and capped just off what the Constitution says. And while all that is happening, Wakili, then one asks the question, as citizens, as Kenyans who passed the 2010 Constitution to ourselves and said this is the document that guides us, how do we move beyond the legacy politician question and IEBC and say this is our Constitution, this is what the Constitution demands, and we will abide by it, not be controlled by the legacy politicians?
That's a very good question. I assure you, before the end of today, I'm going to receive a notice of appeal from IEBC. That I assure you. IEBC, in my election litigation, normally acts as a commission that holds brief for legacy politicians. When I was doing the minor KI case, where I was telling the court that our reading of the Constitution, polling station results are final. Elections are done at the constituency level.
Yes.
IEBC was fighting so hard to say no, polling station results cannot be final. In fact, when the High Court made its determination, the same IEBC, the referee, goes to the Court of Appeal to say, no, polling station results cannot be final. They should be subject to amendment, review, rectification by Bomas.
What are you talking about?
That was the IEBC thrust on appeal. That was the argument in the High Court. That became the argument on appeal. And it was ridiculous even to the judges. You are the referee. If somebody has come to court to seek an interpretation of the law, you will expect IB to say, we leave it to the court to interpret. Let it be between the citizens and any competing parties. And whatever interpretation the court will give us,
we'll abide by it.
We'll abide by it. But if they hold a strong view that we can amend, we can rectify polling station results, it tells you what their mindset is. That is what they do. So you see, systemically, they start ignoring the court order. So also on this one of elections, IBC's duty is not to define the election date. Them, they're supposed to comply with the Constitution. Whatever interpretation the court gives them, they should be saying, we are ready. Or even if we are not ready today, we need this number of days to be ready. So we are asking for the court to accommodate us in this period to organize and take back the sovereignty of the people to donate it.
Is IEBC a constitutional office?
It is a constitutional commission.
Commission,
Yes,
it is, right?
It is, yes.
So the parent company essentially, is the Constitution.
Yes.
So that anything the Constitution says, or if a court of law then rules constitutionally, then should we expect that the IEBC will say, oh, okay, it's the reason why we're here is because of the Constitution, and that reason has said that we must abide 1, 2, 3. Wouldn't that prerequisite action then be immediate?
Exactly. In fact, as it were, the IBC should even have issued a statement to say, we recognize the court's decision that elections are supposed to be held on Tuesday, 11th August 2026. But we also recognize the extension given by the court. But we will be ready to conduct elections at any given point. Because I always say, even when they think that you're going to appeal, who has told you that the Court of Appeal will read a different constitution? I've been on this issue of election date now almost 2 years.
Yes, you have.
Evangelizing it. You gave me a platform here and I tried educating Kenyans. There's another young Kenyan, Mungai Kenya, math teacher, had been at it even longer than me. Just doing public education, wrote articles, published everywhere on this question. But yet, you want to tell me that IBC were not reading these provisions, were not reading these articles, were not following our public engagements, even when we filed the case, that they come to court and their response is, these people who are in office are supposed to be in office for 5 years. Whose brief are they holding? Whose brief? I'd rather even hear it from a serving member of parliament or the president to say, I'm supposed to serve for 5 years, but not the referee. The referee should simply say, you give me the date, interpret the law, whichever date you give me, I'll abide by it. But now the referee is acting more aggrieved than the bereaved. And that undermines our constitution. We must now accept, on election cycle, one thing we must, as Kenyans, do, there are 2 epochal moments in our election history. And I believe this one, to me, is the most consequential. The first one was the Minor K case, which reaffirmed the polling station as the final point of declaration of results. The second one is this decision by Justice Thande, which has affirmed to Kenyans and reminded them that you are now in a 4-year term in office. As per your constitution, you are a 4-year country. And with inside this 5th year, you conduct your elections. And this is not something that's outlandish. In the American system, we borrowed almost word for word from the American Constitution in terms of crafting that election cycle. It's a 4-year term.
Yes, it is.
Nigeria is a 4-year term. So this fascination that we must be there for 5 years doesn't exist. So to me, and this ruling and the interpretation of the courts and the provisions of the Constitution will exist in perpetuity beyond William Ruto, who is now a temporary incumbent. It will apply to the next president, to the one who comes after him, until, if at all, the Kenyan people decide to say, let's amend our Constitution.
But for now?
For now, the law as it is, we must apply it. The only amendment, in my view, that we need, I said, is an amendment of the mind. Amend your minds.
And let's move from there. Let's take a break on this real quick. We come back. We're discussing with Advocate Willis Otieno this morning. And he says from tomorrow, well, not he says, the courts have said very clearly that from tomorrow, actually, you know what? You should have an election because within the 5th year of having had a previous election in Willis Otieno today, and some things are clear.
Okili, ignorance of the law is no defense. And that applies to IEBC. When IEBC says it is independent, yet now there are accusations that it's holding brief for the political class. Just how independent is IEBC? And as well then brings the question in terms of individuals who are vetted to hold these offices. Because if anyone who is chairperson of IEBC should have credentials enough to be a judge of the High Court, one asks the question, just how competent are these people in these offices if interpreting and understanding the law is a problem?
Yeah, my main problem with IBC normally is the manner in which they come into office. It's a political process. The people who ultimately make the decision of who becomes a commissioner is a politician who has a stake or is a competitor in the elections. So obviously, they will choose their cronies. I do remember when the selection panel in the last, not this last, with Chebukati. Chebukati was number 9 out of 9 of the shortlisted candidates who were interviewed. And 3 names were forwarded. His was one of them. Uhuru picked the person who was number 9, number last. Well, that's called the lowest marks. So you ask yourself, what informed the choice of the number last and not number 1 or number 2, whose names were also forwarded? But they had made a law that we are going to send 3 names as opposed to choosing the best from the selection panel. They said send 3 names. The selection panel sent number 1, number 2, and number last. What informed Uhuru's choice of number last to be the chairperson of IEBC? Obviously, that tells you there was a political compromise somewhere that you're number last, you don't qualify. But now, you are now my political lucky. Now, you expect such a person to become independent while in office. You'll be subject to political control. So, IEBC, in as much as the law, the text of the law makes it independent, there are still other strictures that undermines its independence. And politicians legacy politicians who want to control and influence the political process, and knowing IEBC's important role as a referee, try to exert control and influence over IEBC. And it starts with the manner in which commissioners are appointed. There are political compromises that they make to serve their parties and interests for today. But the Kenyan people wanted as a commission that will go a long way to uphold the constitution and their sovereign mandate. The singular duty of IEBC, I've always said, is to just midwife the exercise of the sovereign mandate of the people. It should not care the outcome of that sovereign mandate. If the people choose Barabbas, give them Barabbas. If the people choose Jesus, give them Jesus. But ultimately, in all of this, I've always asked myself, are Kenyans victims or accomplices? And to an extent, I'll err on the side that they may be victims. But sometimes they behave like accomplices. More so, when they don't want to take full control of their own destiny and their own laws. So that when somebody starts arguing with me that you're elected to office for 5 years and your laws, that your constitution does not mention that anywhere. So now you've become a lackey of a legacy politician. Even you are now becoming a purveyor of unconstitutionalism.
Let's look at how serious this actually is. Would I be wrong in, pegging the seriousness to that of the judgment made by the Supreme Court in 2017 when it annulled the results of the election, the presidential election? Because what essentially you said was that everybody goes back to the ballot because the channel, the process of this election had question marks, and that we cannot then bring in an individual on the basis of a question mark. So let's go back and make sure now that process is clear.
It's true.
Is it just as serious as that? And then how do we refer to people? And please educate us, Willis, because in as much as Justice Thande said that we will hold the implementation of this election and move forward in 2027, did she rule on how the individuals who are incumbents now, as you say, temporary incumbents, how the people of Kenya should then deal with them? Did she rule on that?
First, let me say this. The 2017 Supreme Court decision was a monumental decision. And that decision did not just happen out of the blues. The foundation of that decision was the minor care case that had asserted the polling station, because we were unpacking the constitution.
Right.
So having gotten judicial interpretation of the polling station as us being final, it became far much easier in 2017 for the court to say, those were final.
Right.
Why did you amend? Why didn't you vary or rectify those results? So the process question was sorted. So yes, that's why I said this is the second most monumental after that. And these are epochal moments in our constitution. How do we refer to these people? The judge did not, in a way, in our judgment, address that question. It was a live question before. And that was not for her to decide anyway, because it was not a question that was being posed to the court to interpret. But nothing stops us as the people of Kenya from reading our constitution. We've now been told what the law is. We are firmed to the date when we should be having our elections. 11th August 2026, Tuesday. Tuesday, you can appear at your polling station. But the judge said, if you don't find IBC ready on that day, then we can wait.
Okay.
Now we have what I say the Constitution refers to as a temporary incumbency, Article 134. If somebody is told you're a temporary incumbent, it's a temporary period of incumbency. You are a temporary incumbent. We can call this administration now a transitional government. That they are now existing, not informed by the exercised mandate of the people, but as a transitional mechanism through to give the people an opportunity to go find a date that is convenient to exercise and to donate their sovereignty. So I look at William Ruto, I look at members of parliament, I look at governors. You are all former governors. You are temporary incumbents. That is who you are. And when you start performing executive functions beyond what the law allows you to do as a temporary incumbent, then even those may be questioned.
So should we not look at what the law allows you to do then as a temporary incumbent?
No, the Article 134 is very clear what a temporary incumbent can do. William Ruto cannot fire or hire anybody.
Okay.
He cannot appoint ambassadors. He cannot appoint judges. He cannot exercise the power of mercy. Those are what a temporary incumbent is specifically told he cannot do. That is the phase that he's in. Politically, he may not like it, but constitutionally, that's the law. Because he will ignore it, as we expect. But that is still part of undermining our rule of law fabric.
Right.
And what can Parliament do or not do?
Parliament, the 13th Parliament.
As we sit right now.
Luckies of William Ruto, full of legacy politicians. Themselves, they stand accused. Their term expires. Their incumbency expires tonight. Their mandate that was donated ends. So even them, they are going to wish that Kenyans ignore this conversation, that Kenyans don't pay attention to this conversation. But they've lost legitimacy. They are existing not by virtue of a popular mandate. They are existing purely by virtue of a court accommodation to enable the people to exercise their mandate on a date and in a way that will facilitate the true exercise of the franchise of the people.
But okay, what kind of precedence has been set in terms of the law pretty much not being followed? Because I look at staring at a disaster simply because individuals choose to overlook what the law says.
That is why I say that Kenyans must ask themselves, are you victims or accomplices?
Accomplices.
Because the ultimate responsibility of following the rule of law is the people. Section 3, Article 3 of our Constitution gives every Kenyan the duty to defend and to protect the Constitution. When legacy politicians start undermining the Constitution, whose duty it is? You know, even a judge, the most they will do is to interpret for you the law, if there is no clarity. Once they've done it, the ultimate responsibility vests in the people. So Kenyans must exercise eternal vigilance, understand that the legacy politicians are the number one threats to our Constitution, because a Constitution is a document of compromises. It creates restrictions. But individuals will want to exercise unfettered power. So the owner of the Constitution, who are the people, are the ones who should be at the forefront of putting public pressure on these legacy politicians to fully live within the confines of the Constitution. But if you turn your voice into a voice that can be compromised using 200 Kenya shillings, you start cheering nonsense, then are you a victim or an accomplice? You are now part of those who undermine our Constitution. And I'll challenge even professional cadres across the board. Your silence in the eyes of flagrant disregard of the Constitution, are you victims or accomplices? You are making yourselves now accomplices. Aiding and abetting is recognized, right? Once you're aware that something is being done that is illegal and unconstitutional, you must render your voice to it. And rendering your voice doesn't mean that you must even go to the streets only. Even just speaking about it within your social space is a way through which you help educate and to sensitize people on the need to protect the rule of law.
Do you think that if there was an acknowledgement of an election cycle, which is extremely important, that folks would have been operating according to what that cycle then demanded, whereas the Constitution is concerned? Because it would appear to me is that the previous the previous IEBC, because this one we're talking about is just quote unquote newly constituted, if that the previous IEBC at the end of that election, it would have been made very clear, but I mean, it was all discombobulated. I mean, there was the 4 commissioners on this side doing whatever it is that they were doing. The chairperson was, on his own. The CEO was over here doing something else. But wouldn't it have been at that time whereby you're completing one and you're ushering in another? Would there not have been some kind of communication and or preparation in that period, or did it matter because terms had then come to an end?
You know what I find interesting? IBC itself had, by its own precedent, in 2017, fully followed the law. The elections were held in March 2013, the first Uhuru term, and IBC was quick. When we moved into the next year, 2014. To come up with an elections operations plan that was leading us to 2017 elections. Knowing very well that this was 4 years, 5 months. Because they were reading the constitution as I know it.
Yeah.
Then I don't know where the devil came in. I don't know if it was BBI, I don't know if it was COVID, whatever it was. For purpose of 2022, instead of telling us elections 2021, they buy into the legacy politicians' nonsense of elections 2022. Because even if you just follow their own precedent of 2013, 2017, they should have prepared for elections in 2021.
Okay, I'm looking for something to then be able to help these guys. I'm searching for something that would say, this is the reason why.
Yeah.
Is it possible? And you bear with me here. Because there must be some reason as to why something so serious was not taken into consideration, or that even now not being taken into consideration. Is it one of those must shall be kind of things whereby we don't understand the implication of must or shall? Is it one of those ways whereby things may be ambiguous, or is this very clear what should happen here?
There is nothing as clear as to the day and the night.
Okay.
And if you had any doubt, I always say this. There's the word in and there's the word out. You are told, do your elections in the 5th year.
Yes.
I mean, it is simple arithmetics in the 5th year. A simple literal interpretation. Anybody who has done basic kindergarten English knows that in is inside.
Yes.
And 5th
is after 4th and before 6th.
Yeah.
Yes. Okay.
So just find out when is the 5th year.
Okay.
Then look for inside it. Enter inside the 5th year.
Second Tuesday.
Then look for second Tuesday in August, inside that 5th year.
Yeah.
It is so simple and straightforward. And I would have said, they took advantage of a national inertia, which, remember, from 1992, and the elections we've held since 1992, had a constitution in Section 6, Section 9, that had provided for a 5-year term.
Right.
So our political experience had been 5 years.
Yeah.
So it was so easy to perpetuate that myth. What we are doing is we're deconstructing it. That the 5-year myth remains that a myth. It died and it ended with the old constitution. So IBC also must socially amend their minds and accept that they've held brief enough for legacy politicians. They've stolen from the Kenyan people extra 1 year. And that gravy train has to come to an end. And start planning elections based on a 4-year term in office. The election cycle runs for 4 years. Inside the 5th year, you conduct your elections. But they're lackeys of legacy politicians. That's my problem. They want to accommodate them.
Okay. Now, if that has happened, so there are other things that are being put out here. And I've seen a comment here, and I want to bring that in as well. One of the issues, because whether you choose to accept it or not, this is what the Constitution actually says. What do we expect? I mean, you've already said that you expect IEBC to make an appeal. You expect IEBC to also then come out and say, based on what the courts have said, this is what we are planning for, whether we want to do it in 6 months, 3 months. But the court has said that after 2027 is when now we will set the precedent for this. But doesn't that just prolong the time or take us back to the time whereby the Constitution prohibits, number one? Number two, in interim, what do we expect IEBC to do in terms of making an announcement, making an acknowledgement, and if they don't, what happens?
This constitution does not belong to IEBC. It's a document of the people of Kenya. The greatest responsibility is not even on IEBC. It's on the people of Kenya. Because if you are going to rely on these captured institutions, people are lackeys of legacy politicians, to actualize your constitution, I'm sorry. It is the Kenyan people who must take ownership of this and put pressure on legacy politicians and the institutions. Eternal vigilance, as I said, must vest in the people of Kenya. But if the people have decided to become accomplices, that they are going to acquiesce to this, that will ignore our constitution and life goes on. David Maraga, former Chief Justice, during Uhuru's time, ordered for dissolution of Parliament. Uhuru ignored it. The Kenyan people are okay with the legacy politicians continuing with that nonsense. You see, that's why I ask, are you victims or accomplices? I do believe the majority are victims. My people suffer for lack of knowledge and understanding. But the reverend lawyer will do his duty to open your minds. You must emancipate your minds and let you understand. For the ways of the world are all written in the book. The ways of Kenya are all written in the constitution. So take your time to understand and to amplify the message of the constitution. But over-reliance on these legacy politicians and their lackeys, you'll just end up undermining our constitution. We're in a new phase. It's a 4-year term in office. Every 4 years, sovereignty goes back to the people. So now where I sit today, midnight to night, the sovereign power that was donated on the 9th of August 2022
goes back to the people.
And we're in a temporary phase where people are just but a transitional government sitting in office to facilitate an election process being conducted, where the sovereign will have an opportunity to exercise his franchise. Article 1 of the Constitution, all sovereign power belongs to the people, and it can only be done in a manner prescribed in the Constitution. They can exercise that sovereign power either directly or through democratically elected representatives. Those democratically elected representatives, their mandate lapses at midnight, as per the Constitution.
We live as well in a country where court orders have always been ignored. They've been disrespected. As we move forward then, Wakili, in this temporary incumbency that begins tonight, how do we ensure that this court order is upheld?
This court order must be upheld. And the point is this. To the extent the court has given them accommodation, we expect IEBC to come up with a quick elections operations framework that ensures the people's sovereignty exercised at the first available opportunity. And the people of Kenya must demand for it. Otherwise, going forward, this is like a junta. We have a junta republic, junta that does not have full sovereignty, but accommodated only by the court to allow the people to enjoy an opportunity to donate back their sovereignty. The suspension given by the court does not take away the finding of the court. The findings of the court are that elections are on the 11th of August 2026.
To have this knowledge is definitely important. Wakili Willis Otieno, thank you for being here with us this morning. It's going to be an interesting couple of days to see how this actually plays out, but that to know what the Constitution says and to live by it is important. Asante sana.
Situation Room, the only way to start your